Well, hello everybody. This is Harlan Kilstein for Dogington University. We are absolutely thrilled that you are with us today, and we're going to get started in something that is going to be an absolutely memorable session for you. It's going to be something that you're probably going to want to review, and we're going to make available the replay to this session and all other sessions of our Merrick Pet Care Dogington University program for you at the conclusion of the program. So Dogington University, if you're new to us, welcome. It's brought to you by the Dogington Post, which is your dog's favorite online newspaper, and Merrick Pet Care. Our friends at Merrick are just leaders in the real pet food revolution. All of their products are healthy. All of their products says right on the bag what the ingredients are, clear, no measly mouthing, no sneaking ingredients that you know aren't good for your dog in the back door. When you feed your baby Merrick, you can just see the quality right in the can. Merrick products, the recipes are USDA inspected, deboned meat, and real produce. So to learn more about Merrick and their real food revolution, go ahead and you can visit Merrick on Facebook at facebook.com Merrick Pet Care. And what they're doing today, and what we've done every day, is they are going to be giving away, Merrick is going to be giving away a 25-pound bag of their new grain-free real Texas beef dry dog food. And if you're with us the first time, the way this is going to work is we're going to ask you a question based on something that is said in today's webinar, and I'm going to alert you. And at that point, you should be ready to type in the answer. And the first person who types in the correct answer to our guest question wins that bag of Merrick. But something even better is that in addition to the bag that you will be winning today, if you're the first to answer the question correctly, Merrick is going to donate an additional bag to our friends at the National Mill Dog Rescue. We're all about saving dogs, and Merrick is thrilled to join us on this journey. So, about our presenter today, Paul Owens has been training dogs since 1972. For the past 40 years, he has been one of the leading proponents of positive, nonviolent animal training in the world. His books, including The Dog Whisperer, have been considered some of the very best books for dog training. Paul Owens is the original Dog Whisperer. So, Paul, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Harlan. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. When I was invited to do this, I was trying to think about which program that we are currently involved with that might be of interest, and because of the rescue work that everyone does, especially the number of people that are listening to this program is involved with, I thought you might be interested in one of the programs that we've been doing for many, many years at the shelters and rescues that I do volunteer work. Whenever I do any of these programs, I always say, you know, take what you want and leave the rest. Everybody has their own style, everybody has their own model, and I just thought if we present this one, you can get little tidbits here, and it certainly has worked for us. And so I'd like to introduce you to what's called the Dog Whisperer Reactive Dogs Rescue Program. The Reactive Dogs Rescue Program is a program that we came up with for dogs that come into shelters that are having a little bit more difficult time. There are some dogs, as all the rescue people in the world know, that have a really, really difficult time the moment they come into the rescue or the shelter. They simply cannot survive. They're so over threshold that for those dogs, we immediately find foster homes for them. Then we have the reactive dogs, the dogs that spin, jump, lunge, pull toward, or bark at other dogs or people, and they're often labeled aggressive, when a more accurate term is they're reactive. And reactivity is rooted in fear. These poor dogs are behind bars, some of them for the first time in their lives, and so we have to try to help them get over the hump. The third category for dogs that come into the shelters are those that say, okay, I'm in a shelter, I'm waiting for my forever home, I can handle it. And as long as the staff and the volunteers, which virtually all of them are showed such consideration and compassion for the dogs, they're able to go out for walks and they're going to be able to be played with. And so those dogs don't need as much work as the reactive dogs. So these behaviors are always on display at rescues and shelters because of perceived threatening sights, sounds, and movements that bombard them all day. So reactive dogs are not only less appealing to potential adopters, their behavior obviously can sometimes be a safety issue. And the reason for that, although a dog might not be aggressive, as all dog people know, perception is the reality. So people who don't have a lot of experience with dogs and a dog, they feel teeth when the dog is just doing a face punch or a muzzle punch. Oh, your dog bit me. So we have to deal with the realities of the situation. Okay, so what we like, the definition, if we can go back one, let's see. Okay, great. So what I'd like to do is show you basically one of the clips from one of the shelters we work with. Let's see if this works. This is Poppy. This is one of the dogs you're going to see us working with in this presentation. This is Bobby. I've tried to show you clips of different contexts, on leash, off leash, in rooms with baby gates, in the dog runs. This is Oliver. So this is what we start with. Now, obviously, Oliver wouldn't be off leash if he was a safety issue, but he's not. So the definition that we use for our program is that it's an educational behavioral modification model that places an equal value on the proper application of scientific methods, as well as an equal to a conscious awareness of using those methods with kindness, compassion, and empathy. Years ago, I read a quote when Dr. Martin Luther King was asked why he didn't use more physically confrontational methods in his quest for peace and freedom. And he said, if our goal is peace, our means must be peaceful. So everyone who is listening to this program, I believe, is really steeped in using positive methods, and that process is equal to the goal that we use. And it was the entire intent of the original Dog Whisperer book, which came out in the 90s, to help educate people that the process is equal to the goal. So the Reactive Dogs Rescue Program implements a holistic approach which improves the quality of life for reactive shelter dogs. It raises their stress management threshold and increases their behavioral reliability. And thereby, it greatly improves the safety factor as well as the adoptability percentage of this. By holistic, we mean this. This is based on the 9 ingredients model that I came up with back in the 90s that is in the original Dog Whisperer book. And you'll notice that these are the same 9 ingredients that we need, humans need, to lead a safe, happy, healthy life. So when presented in proper quality and quantity of food, play, socialization, quiet time, exercise, employment, and that simply means physical, mental, and emotional stimulation. We often say if you don't give a dog a job to do, they become self-employed, and they become gardeners and home decorators and professional protectors of the household. So dogs need a job to do, and we'll show you some of the things that we work with at the shelters. Rest, training, conditioning, which you'll hear me refer to as substitute behaviors. As everyone who is listening to this program knows, that all of these programs that people come up with, it's all about teaching a substitute behavior. It's not trying to suppress a behavior or stop a behavior. It's trying to redirect the energy. And so the dogs have to learn what that substitute behavior is. And the last is healthcare. If you're not feeling good because you've got a toothache, you've got a paw in that's got a thorn in it, you get pretty grumpy. So the very first thing we do whenever dogs come into shelters is we give them a complete overview by the vets. It does include aids, herbal remedies, flower remedies. Some of you may be familiar with the Composure, which works with amino acids, and Nutricalm, which works with the flower remedies as well as herbs. Music through a dog's ear we have found very successful. Nothing works for every single dog, so we experiment to see which dog happens to like what. Dog appeasing pheromones we have found been effective for some dogs, not others. So again, it's a experimentation to find out what works, and pharmacological aids when necessary. We haven't found it that many dogs that we are working with at the shelters really need to go on antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs. Most of them work with these other adjuncts. And again, as everybody's familiar with, no adjunct is going to work unless it's combined with a behavioral modification program. And Thunder shirts, also anxiety wraps. I wanted to take a second to talk about this because everybody knows about Thunder shirts, I believe, in trying to help calm dogs, and why does it work. And just to spend a minute on that, there's this concept of proprioceptors. It's another name for it is your kinesthetic sense, your sense of your body in space. And it's an unconscious thing that, like, if your body had a voice to it, it says, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And we're not aware of that until we get into situations where we're stepping off a stair or we're going into a room where the walls are close. And so then we become aware of our body saying, hey, watch out. And so the idea of wrapping a dog to help them calm down, simply the reason that it works is because it teaches the body, yes, you know where you are. And I'll give you a really good example. So most of the people that are listening to this are fidgeting. You may be drumming your fingers, you may be texting something, you may be drinking water, tapping your foot. The reason our bodies do that is because of the fact it gives us a sense of we're safe. It's constantly the body saying check in, check in, check in. And there are studies that have shown that fidgeting like that actually helps us concentrate more. It's when we're perfectly still that the body's voice starts saying, hey, are we still there? Are we safe? And so the only time I have a problem with that is people text. People text through the entire meeting. So there's a line in the sand here. So I'm a big fan of teaching people when I go into my group classes and my private classes to recognize dog body language, what the ears and the eyes and the body, what the nose is doing, the shivers. I had a Portuguese water dog who her jaw used to go up and down. And some of you, when she's thinking and when she's processing things, and some of you may have had dogs where that happens so quick, you hear a little clicking. And if I may digress for just one moment, there are 4 stages or 4 stress manifestations categories that professional dog trainers learn to recognize. And we try to insert this into our group classes so that people can recognize that their dogs are trying to figure something out and either get them out of the situation if they're over threshold or give them time to figure it out. And those 4 categories are, and you'll notice that they're the same that we humans have. Oral stress manifestations, where people chew their fingernails, they chew pencils, they grit their teeth, they lick their lips. Dogs chew you, the furniture, they lick their lips. And so this is one stress manifestation category. Another is vocal. You may notice that as I'm talking, as my passion increases, I start to speak a little bit quicker. And I just can't shut up. And I just talk and talk and talk and talk. And some people get very loud and you can't shut them up. And so that's, for dogs, they bark, they whine, they whimper, they howl. The third category is a visceral response to things. If I'm speaking to 10,000 people, I may have butterflies in my stomach. And I may, oh, listen, excuse me, I got to visit the loo. I got to get out of here. Well, you notice the dogs do the same thing. So they pee, they poop, and so, unfortunately, sometimes, just like people, they throw up. And so you want to get the dogs, and yourself out of the situation, or use a stress management technique where you can come under threshold. And the last one is physical. Dogs and humans. We pace, we paw, we jump, we spin. Our arms are moving all around, which, as professional dog trainers know, is one of the biggest problems, trying to get people to slow down with their arms. They're always conducting orchestras in front of their dog, and the dog just can't figure out what real message they're trying to get. So the less we move, the more we say. And it's basically economy of motion. So the Reactive Dogs Rescue Program employs 4 primary treatment programs. These are programs, the first 3 that I've been working with for many, many years, and the last one I became familiar with a couple of years ago is the wonderful program that Grisha Stewart came out with, the Behavioral Adjustment Training Program. We're going to focus on the 3 that we've been using in our shelters. There are certainly other techniques that we use, and we couldn't go through all of them because this is actually a full-day seminar that we're presenting in 1 hour, so we're giving you the highlights. So it's the Feed and Free program we're going to demonstrate with Poppy. Bridging the Gap is a program with Oliver that we've been doing, and the Gauntlet Escort program, which everybody who works in rescues recognizes that this is probably the most difficult thing, or at least one of the most difficult things, to help a dog get under threshold. I use a model that I came up with many years ago called the 4 C's. People call this different names. Control, using prevention and management, is the #1 thing we do to create a safe and ideal learning environment. If a dog is over threshold, they can't learn anything. So we try to put them in the different dog runs where they are away from dogs they may not be too happy with, next door to each other. For the dogs that are more reactive, we put them in separate rooms by themselves. Keeping dogs under threshold is the key to success. The next 2, capture and cue, it's all operant conditioning. Conditioning a dog, capturing is conditions a dog to respond with increasing frequency to desired behaviors by reinforcing those behaviors when they spontaneously present it. In other words, whenever your dog happens to sit, whenever your dog happens to lie down, an unasked for behavior, you reward it. When I switched over from negative training to positive training back in the 80s, one of the first things I did was attended Terry Ryan, a wonderful person, and her programs were just terrific. And I attended, as many of you may have, her chicken camps. And that's where this came from, where you capture behaviors. And cueing, conditioning your dog to respond with increasing frequency when signaled. Again, the basics of all of this is you never ask a dog to do something until you teach them the behavior. When I go into homes, the way I explain that is if you were speaking Chinese and if you asked me to sit in a chair, I'd have no idea what you're talking about. But if you demonstrated it and pointed to the chair and pointed to me, I say, oh, you want me to sit in the chair. Then if you added that phrase in Chinese, I would know what the heck you were talking about. So it takes a while for people to get this into their brains that 21 to 28 days is how long it takes for dogs and humans to form a habit. But it takes 1 to 12 months to replace a bad habit or an established behavior with a new habit. And that is directly affected by the trainer's skills and their consistency, as well as the dog. So sometimes it's a lifelong program. And the last is conditioned emotional responses. We're going to talk about this. And this is the key to all of this. Change the way a dog feels about a situation, and you change their behavior. So this is what it looks like at the shelters. This is the wheel of success we came up with many years ago. The 4 C's for success that we just talked about: controlling the environment, which is prevention and management; the 2 operant conditioning models, capture and cue, and conditioning and emotional response. So for the first one, control, I'm going to spend just a second on this. You guys can compare this to what you're already doing in your shelters, and I'm sure you have more specific things. So this is just an overview. Prevention and management is creating an optimum environment for learning. Trainers are taught to safely use different collars and harnesses, and to make the process of attaching them a positive experience. I have a video clip of exactly what that is and why it's a safety issue as well as a stressful issue for a lot of dogs who come into the shelters. A lot of these dogs are outdoor dogs. They were never in the house, and they were chained to something and chained to a tree, and they hate collars and leashes, so we have to turn that around. Trainers have taught the importance of keeping safe distances, 0 to 6 feet, we say is what's called the critical distance or the flight distance, where most dogs feel that they are safe. We measure the dog's progress as we work with them, depending on how close they come as time goes by. And they learn how to redirect dogs in a positive way away from potentially dangerous situations. So if 0 to 6 feet is the critical or flight distance, we like to tell people 6 to 20 feet is the secondary distance, and your dog will tell you at what distance they'll start paying attention to you and your chicken and stop being so threatened by the trigger. And then for some dogs, we work in 100 yards. When I was in Cleveland, I had one dog at the 0-yard line at the football field and another at this other 0 line, and I was at the 50-yard line, and that's where we started. Trainers are taught to safely enter and leave dog runs, the shelter itself, and the bark yard. I put that in because it was a cute title that we've given to our playground. Trainers are taught what to do if accidents happen, especially dogs that get loose, and meeting off-leash neighborhood dogs. Every day, all the trainers, all the volunteers are taught the digging in the sand method, where you go 6 feet away, turn sideways, drop to the ground, and pretend you're a dog digging. And so that when an emergency happens, the dog says, oh, yeah, I love that. They're on the ground, and I run up to them and give them treats. It's also a very valuable tool, of course, if a dog has something in their mouth. You just drop to the ground, dig to the ground, pretend you're digging, and the dog comes up to you. I might add to that, it's very important that you never grab the thing that's in the dog's mouth, the illegal object, or grab the dog the one time they come up to you carrying it, because as all of you dog experts will know, they're not going to fall for that again. Removal. While at the shelter, we place highly reactive dogs in a room away from the triggering stimuli. You will see Bobby and Birdie, I believe, in their own rooms, because they just, no matter what we did, they could not get under threshold, because dogs going down the gauntlet, whenever they were taken for a walk, they'd pass in front of the dog runs, and it just got worse and worse. And carrying. Now, this has to do with that proprioceptive concept I was talking about, the dog's body in space, which is why Thunder Shirts or anxiety wraps, or I believe Tellington Touch has a wrap too, that works for some dogs. For Poppy, when he was going down the gauntlet, it was just too much for him. So we picked him up and we held him, and we tried to get as far away from the runs as we could, and we tried to use counter conditioning by giving him treats as we walked by, and it worked really well. Some dogs, when you pick them up, it goes the other way. So there's no one method that works for every dog. So you're going to see Poppy as a great example, and we are in the process of shaping her behavior to ignore other dogs completely. First using this carrying method, and then you'll see that we actually start putting her on the ground. So we talked about the...
Can I just interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
And just let all of our friends who are on the call let you know that we will be taking your questions at the end. It's better, you save them until the end and type them in when we call for questions, and then you can ask us questions. I see so many of them coming in. It's better if you save them for the end so we don't lose them. Okay? All right, back to you.
And I want to thank you, Harlan, and I want to thank all of your listeners. I'm guessing a lot of you have the same tendency that I do. We have such passion for dogs, and we've been doing this for so long. It's like getting on a roller coaster, and my voice picks up speed. So I'll try to keep it under threshold myself. The second one is capture. So we talked a little bit about prevention and management. The 5 behaviors that we capture is whenever your dog happens to sit, hey, way to go, dude, petting, praise, treats. This is my dog, Grady. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he was a very reactive dog. Actually, he was a very aggressive dog. But he ended up being petted by over 5,000 children before he left this earth. So whenever a dog lies down, this is one of the top 2 behaviors that we say make a default behavior, that whenever the dog becomes confused, whenever they get conflicted, I'm just going to lie down. I get more money, more attention for lying down than I do for anything, so I'm just going to lie down and relax. Whenever your dog brings a toy to you without asking, if a dog's got a toy in their mouth, they don't have somebody else in their mouth. And you're also triggering those feel-good chemicals, the neurotransmitters, which we're going to talk about, the dopamine. Change the way the dog feels, you change their behavior. This is the other, looks to you for direction. When I do private classes and in my group classes, I make this the critical substitute behavior for everything. If your dog is checking in with you, they hear something, they see something, and they check in with you, in that 2/100ths of a second, people have to learn that dog speed. You just made eye contact. In dog language, how am I doing? What do you want me to do? Give me some direction. If people do not acknowledge that unasked for, spontaneous look, the dog only has one other option, and that's to listen to Mother Nature. And it's Mother Nature who's sitting on the dog's shoulder saying, lunge, jump, dig, chew, run away. So this is the #1 default behavior we stress in all of our classes and with all of our dogs at shelters. Whenever your dog happens to look to you, they get jackpotted. And the last one is whenever your dog goes to their bed or their blanket or to their kennel or to their room without being asked. We point out to people that if your dogs make a habit of these 5 behaviors, they solve every single problem you can think of. If your dog is doing one of these things, your dog is not doing something that you don't want them to do. So I thought I'd give you an example of a substitute behavior. This is Bobby in his room, and his problem, you're going to see, we try to give examples of the problem behavior, and then over the days and weeks and months, the substitute behavior. So Bobby's problem was, #1, jumping on people. And then you're going to see he also has secondary reaction, putting his mouth on people and grabbing people's clothes. So I've combined these two to show you the problem behavior and then the substitute behavior, which is go to your spot and lie down. Oops, one moment, please.
There we go.
So after a few sessions, this is him being reactive on leash. You see how he's checking around, and here's the substitute. Oh, you want me to lie down and relax? Okay, I got that. Then he had another problem of arms up over his head. Watch his mouth. Okay, I'm going to show you this again. You can see his mouth on me. I'm going to try to slow this down so you can see this. He hated arms coming over him. See his teeth? It's kind of blurry. There. So what do? We taught him to back up and who's your buddy? Oh, I love it when guys do it. You want to see that one again? Let's try this. Let's see if we can do it. Who's your buddy? I found myself wanting to say good dog here, and I'm watching this. All right, and so what's the substitute behavior? We teach leave it. You'll see a little flick here. And he said, that's all right. There you go. So the substitute behavior for putting your mouth on somebody is, oh, you want me to wait. This is the key to all of this, is changing the dog's anticipatory response. For those of you that are based in classical conditioning, you'll know that it isn't the food that triggers it. It's the anticipation of the food when Pavlov was ringing the bell and giving it. It's anticipation. If you can change what the dog is anticipating, oh, something good's going to happen to me. And I'm going to show you this in a couple of clips. That's the key to all of this. And this is the conditioned emotional response. The presence of food releases chemicals called neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, that make the dog feel good. You'll notice it's the same thing that makes us feel good. These primary chemicals are called dopamine, serotonin. You fall in love, and oh, I can't wait for him or her to call. Oh my gosh, I can't eat, sleep. Did they text? Did they text? Did they text? And you know, and then a few years later, hi honey, how you doing? Yeah, I love you too. All right. So you have to learn to replace that with a different chemical. When we use treats while training, our dogs create a positive emotional response to the presence of those treats and the anticipation of the presence of those treats. By pairing food with a trigger, the dog's anticipatory response changes. That is, the dog starts looking forward to something good happening rather than having a fear-based reaction. This process is known as counter-conditioning, classical conditioning, all Pavlovian stuff. We change or condition a new emotional response so the dog feels good about something that used to be unpleasant to him or her. So once again, we've gone through the 4 C's of control, which is prevention and management, spontaneous rewarding of a behavior, cueing a behavior, I'm going to show you this in a second, and conditioning an emotional response. So This is the first. This is called the escort service. And what we teach people, every volunteer, every staff member, every trainer, the very first thing they are taught is to go down the gauntlet and throw a treat behind the dog. The reason we throw it behind the dog is so that the dog learns to anticipate that the treat is going behind them. And it's a very easy way to teach a dog to back up. So the step one is, and this goes on as long as the dog's in the shelter. First thing in the morning, everybody goes down so the dog anticipates that we love when people walk by. Then when we take a dog out to be walked or take them out to get pooped or peed, then we have that person who is ever in the area immediately go to the dog runs and escort the handler who now has a dog. So we start with just the human, then we add a handler with a dog, and the very last stage is the handler walks by. You're going to see me going up and down, and then the staff member rewards it. So the dog anticipates, so now I have to wait for the treat to come a little bit later. So in shelters and rescues, lack of space often proves a challenge, but many dogs have been able to redirect towards the treats instead of dogs walking by. So we're going to show the problem behavior, and I'll show you these steps. Notice the music in the background. So this is Sarah. She's a great trainer. She works at the Glendale Humane Society. You see the dog start anticipating the treats are in back. Now this is Poppy, very reactive when he's on the ground. And now Sarah is escorting. You'll see me walk back again. We try to use $10,000 treats, chicken, turkey, cheese, hamburger, steak, whatever you got. Now here's me walking with Poppy, alone. The dogs you're hearing are in the back 40. This is the front half. Now Poppy's just getting used to this. You'll see him tug on the leash a little bit. I'm out of here. And now you'll see Sarah. Now she comes by. And you notice none of the dogs were reacting when I came by with Poppy. This is a very difficult situation for these dogs because we get new dogs in all the time. And you have to start all over again. But it's proven very effective as long as people are consistent doing it. One of the problems we have at shelters and rescues, of course, is trying to get the volunteers to be consistent. Before I go into the other two programs, working with reactive dogs, I did want to list the behaviors that we do teach them. The sit, the down, the stay, leave it, back up. For those of you who are interested in nonviolent, non-shock snake avoidance training, this is the way it was taught. This is the way a positive trainer would teach it. So if you can watch the backup. Drop it, walk without pulling and heeling. We don't care if a dog walks in front of us as long as they're not pulling, but they do have to walk next to us if we're crossing the street or we're going by another dog or a house with barky dogs. Come when called, emergency come when called, find it, which is hunting, fetch, which is hunting. When I talked about giving a dog a job to do, that's the #1 job to give a dog. Agility works and triggers all those feel-good chemicals because it's hunting. And then go to your spot, which you saw an example of. So I'd like to show you then, here's an example of fetching. This is Poppy and Birdie. If the dog, they have something in their mouth, they don't have you in your mouth. We also teach tug. And the most important thing, of course, is you never release it. So the dog doesn't learn if I pull fast and hard, I can get that ice cream out of that child's hand. This is Birdie. This is after about 3 months. And you'll notice no treats are being used here. And while we take him on walks, or her on walks, we practice the sits and downs and stays, and spontaneously rewarding whenever she happens to look up. Now she's going to see a distraction, and our signal for let's go is, Woohoo. Eh, there you go. So we try to make it part of their everyday routine. This next model that we use is called bridging the gap. This is a combination of counter conditioning. The two things that trigger those neurotransmitters, the feel-good chemicals, is play and the treats. And we use that while the trigger is in place. Now, a key to that, of course, is distance, to find at what point the dog will actually still pay attention to you and play the game and ignore, although they're aware of the trigger, the unwanted stimulus in the background, they'll still ignore them. Desensitization, you'll see that as Oliver is practicing this, every time something bad doesn't happen to him, he says, well, okay, I can handle it. And as time goes by, that new neural pathway is formed. Oh, nothing bad happened, nothing bad happened. Well, maybe I'll go up to this guy. And substitution. What is the substitute behavior that you want your dog to do instead of lunge after somebody or run after somebody? Is come back to you, to turn away and come back to you. So you're going to see the initial behavior. And I actually started this program, filming this program at the second or third session. So this is what it's going to look like. All these little blue dots are treats. So we tell the dog to find it at a perpendicular. We do that 3, 4, 5 times. And then we gradually lay the treats up to that scary looking cameraman at the top there. So this is the way it looks. Oliver's distance was about 25 feet from the camera. So here we are playing. I started lesson 1 with a 20-foot lead. But when we realized, you know, the safety wasn't an issue, he is still wearing a leash. See him check in with Drew, my cameraman. So this is 3 or 4 sessions later of following that little curve so that the dog isn't directly coming up to the camera person. Now watch. Okay, I see you. All right, I'm out of here. So you'll notice we teach all the dogs the basic behaviors before we start teaching this. Because it builds a dog's confidence. They say, oh, I know what you want me to do. Now you see the progression. He stalled a little bit, but he didn't even look at Drew. And after several more sessions, watch this. I don't know. No, I'm out of here. Maybe. Okay. All right, now, and he hates he hates arms coming over him, so we teach him under the bridge, and it started this way and it ended this way with Drew the cameraman. Watch Oliver lean in. Yeah, all right. Okay, I love you.
All right, how many people here are learning something and seeing some amazing things? Tell me what you think.
Okay.
People saying, yes, this is great. Woohoo. Lots of learning. Fantastic.
Okay.
Paul is brilliant. Love it. Yes, great. Wonderful. Wow. You know, Paul, you should just be here. People are going to like feed your ego. Paul is the best ever.
Well, see, these are positive.
So glad I'm here. Wonderful. Great presentation. Thank you.
Hey, way to throw me a bone, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much. The Feed, See, and Free program, what this is all about is a combination of Pavlov and Skinner. And we start at a distance where, once again, the dog can be successful. And this is pure Pavlovian counter conditioning. The dog is chewing on treats while the cameraman goes by. There are 3 steps to this. The first step is the cameraman is moving while the dog is still. The second step is the dog is moving while the cameraman is still. And then the next progression is we're both moving at the same time. I don't have the third one on this, but you'll get the picture. You'll see the first 2. And then we're reinforcing the substitute behavior. So subject still, trigger in motion. Subject in motion, trigger still. Oops, spelled the name. Well, that's the English way of spelling it, I guess. both subject and trigger in motion, and then the dog on the fourth try looks at the trigger and then looks back and then is given the reward. So we go from Pavlov to Skinner, and it looks like this. This is how it starts. Reactive poppy. Camera's moving while Poppy is getting food. We had to experiment the distance. This is about 14 feet. That's 1. I say stay. He goes the other way. That's 2. You'll see me stop. Say stay. You'll notice I'm stepping on the leash here. Now here comes the camera person. Step 3, I'll say stay. He's going to look at the camera person and look back. Good. Don't you all want to say good job? Here's reactive Poppy. Here's Poppy now walking while the camera is still. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. For those of you who are watching this and saying, well, yeah, but the camera, he's got a camera. Well, watch Poppy, what she does with the camera at the end of this. That's mozzarella cheese. You see it? See Poppy look over? There's a default. There you go. Yeah, I don't know about that camera. That's reverse psychology, but you can't do it again. Yeah, there you go. Yay! Yay! Oh, that was most excellent. Okay, now here's the finished product. Ready? There's the camera, folks. That was pretty awesome. Look at that tail. Ready? Copy. Down. Now here's the release. Hey. Leave it. I said leave it, just like I did with Bobby earlier. He says, okay, you want me to leave the cameraman. You taught me how to leave chicken. Now you're teaching me to leave the cameraman and look towards you. There you go. And now she gets to go away from the thing. This is Poppy, who didn't play with any dogs. We use the exact same principle. Instead of a cameraman, we use another dog. Now this is Drew, the cameraman. You remember how Poppy acted earlier? Drew speaks good dog. Look at that look. Hi, Drew. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Okay, we're working here. Completely different conditioned emotional response. So instead of a lunge, what do you get? Here's Drew. You notice how Drew's petting Poppy underneath the chin. We always teach people, you never pet a dog on top of the head. Oh, you can pet me some more here. Okay, you're not petting me enough here, so let me get up closer. Okay, now pet me again. See the soft eyes? No, you got to pet me some more. Okay, so that's what that looks like about changing a conditioned emotional response. I wanted to show you leave it and back up. Leave it and back up are two of the critical behaviors we teach, because some of these dogs go after, you're picking up a toy, they go after the toy. We don't want dogs going after the toy or picking, or somebody's picking stuff off the ground, because, again, teeth hit hands and people perceive, well, that was a bite. Well, I believe it was Ian Dunbar, who once said, dogs are like surgeons. They know exactly how much pressure to put on. You're going to see Bobby put his full mouth on me. They can put a mouth on you and not leave a mark. They can put a mouth on you and leave a bruise. They can put 1/8 of an inch of their canine in and just do simple bite and draw blood, then the full canine, then the multiple bites, and then the dog who really means business, multiple bites at certain areas of the body, which is the face, the throat, the groin area. So I'm going to do a montage here of leave it and back up. Healing, huh? Oh yeah, I don't know why that's there. And I'm going to show you the emergency come that we use. Everybody has their own emergency come, but I thought you'd like to see what it is that we do for emergencies. These are the backups.
Good job. Good job. Okay. I'll do it again.
If a dog won't back away from cheese or toys, they're not going to back away from another dog.
Good job.
There's a reward instead of being food.
Good job.
And why not play with the dog to continue that feel-good stuff?
Oh, that's the other one. You're speeding the wrong way, dude. Yeah. Over. Yay! Woohoo! That was really good, buddy. That was perfect.
Conditioned emotional response. Get the faucet in the dog's head and let that dopamine and serotonin go. Here's the emergency come. We tell people to do this 200 times a day. Say the word here, pure Pavlov. Instead of bell, say the word here and stick the treat in the dog's mouth. It's putting money in the bank. So when there's an emergency, you cash out. So for the rest of their lives, sound effects. For the rest of their lives, we tell people every time you put their food down, a split second before you put the food down, you say here. A split second before you give them a bully stick or a chicken breast strip or a treat-filled Kong, you say here. So that in that special emergency, going into the street, going for a skunk, going towards a cat, going towards anything, and you say come, because dogs are not as, people are not as consistent teaching a reliable come as they are for this. What happens when my 4 dogs would run out in the morning and say hello to the squirrels and the next door neighbor's dogs, and they'd bark for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd yell out from inside the house, okay, you guys, that's it. 75% of the time they'd shut up and they could stay out there. If they were not quiet within 1 second, I would then say the word here, and they would all become zombies, just like Stepford wives must go towards sound, and they would rush into the house. So it actually becomes a reflexive behavior, so that when they hear this word, the one time a week or a month that you use it, they don't even think about choice. So this is one of the emergency behaviors that we teach, and that's how it's taught. So then we take it on the road. I firmly believe that play groups, finding dogs that get along with each other, and taking dogs as hikes are the most important healing exercises that you can do. So once we teach all this, then we take it on the road. Let Mother Nature be your healer, and this is one of our walks. Please be careful of foxtails. That's the fabulous Kelly. That's the awesome Trudy. Got it? And so while we're doing that, we practice the sits and the downs and the stays and the comes. Last but not least here, we do teach Grisha's program, behavioral adjustment training, using what's called functional rewards. You saw a little bit about that in the programs that you just viewed. If the dog turns away from it, that's the reward. They say, well, I get it, so that trigger, that isn't so scary. So it's a combination of counter conditioning, desensitization programs. So we couldn't play. I talked to her, and she gave me permission to play her little video clip, but unfortunately we can't play it here. But I highly recommend you go to her website and view it. It's a tremendous program, and it's just another tool in your toolbox. You'll see that not one of these programs works for every single condition. So you come up with your own, and everybody who's listening should come up with their own program. Again, as I started this, take what you want and leave the rest. There's some brilliant minds out there, and look at how much we've evolved since my 1972, 1974 start from using negative training. I switched over in 1988. Look how far we've come and how much it's benefited the people and the dogs. So you can go to Grisha's program. talk to as many people, go to as many programs as you can. You'll always learn a little something from everybody. Here, once again, is the total wheel. You'll see where it says play groups and hikes down at the bottom. Please forgive me for you stalwarts in the audience where the word pet is up there. When I had this made, it was inserted, and I do not refer to dogs as pets. So just 86 that in your mind and just call it a parenting seminar. What it means, before any dog can be taken from a shelter, the director then gives a 2-hour program to make the transition for the dogs as well as the humans as stress-free as possible. In other words, you are prepared for all the different contingencies as best as you can be. So the director of the Glendale Humane Society, Alice Russell, wonderful person, has been giving this for many years. She started with a 45-minute program. Now it's up to 2.5 hours. But she's very talky. And so what happens is you talk about diet, you talk about prevention and management, you talk about when you should give the dog freedom. After that, the dog is adopted. They cannot take a dog out until they have this parenting seminar. Might be a good idea for human beings too. And then I go to for this one shelter, I go to the person's home about a week later and I give a free 1-hour training session so that people learn the basics on how to set up the environment and how to teach your dogs to do these things. So this is the entire Reactive Dogs Rescue Program. You go all the way around the wheel and you go from there. I think we sum it up. The way we treat our dogs is directly related to how we treat ourselves, our family, and our friends. In my children's program, which is called Pause for Peace, there's a little byline that says, we're promoting peace and kindness in the world, one dog at a time. So if peace is our goal, our means must be peaceful. They must be kind. They must be empathetic. They must be compassionate, because that's how we should be with ourselves, our family, and our friends, and that's what our dogs are, our family and our friends. So I just added my own words to that wonderful quote. It should be fun too. So if there are any questions, we'll be happy to steer them.
There's also the
Okay, are you set for questions?
Harlan, can I interrupt 1 second?
Absolutely, you can interrupt.
Let me show you, I forgot about this, the wonderful Drew, the cameraman, who has been helping me out with this, he reminded me that we have one more clip that we wanted to finish. For those of you that work at shelters and rescues, some of the dogs that are rescued come in pregnant, and they end up with a litter full of puppies. And so how do you do the Reactive Dogs Rescue Program from the time they come in to the shelters, and to try to get them so that they can handle life? This is a program that we did about a year ago now. So I'd like to show you what this program looks like with puppies. It runs about 3 minutes.
I first met Delilah to the shelter, and I really didn't know her too well until I found out she had puppies, and then I introduced myself to her. When the dogs come into the Glendale Humane Society that are pregnant, there is a program that we've set up for them for socialization and training, because the first 14 weeks of a dog's life are the most important. That's it. That's the foundation. That's the cement that's laid, and that's what you're going to get for the rest of your life. So we first start training the puppies. The very first thing we're getting them used to is touch. We get them to get used to different people touching them, and touching them in different ways and in different angles. The more that we can get dogs used to the sights and sounds and smells of the world, the real world, in that age, then you dramatically increase the probability that their temperament is going to be sound, that their fear levels are going to be much lower than dogs that have to do it on their own. We work as the weeks go on through weeks 3 and 4, and we simply teach them to follow us by keeping a little food right in front of their mouth, and we teach them to turn, first to the left and then to the right. We put our hands up over their head and their little butts hit the floor, which is the beginning of teaching them how to sit. We teach them to climb up on a very low step in week 4, and that teaches them to use their back legs so that they can push off. And then week 5, we add a step, and then we can start teaching them balancing exercises. We have a little balancing board where they learn to go up and they learn to go down. And the dog learns what their sense of body and space is. And it's tremendously effective for a puppy to gain confidence because they live through that little balance thing. One of the things we do as part of the socialization period around week 4 and 5 is we actually introduce them to other dogs, which is a lot of fun. We have a Great Dane, who is Monica's dog, this huge, massive dog come in, and the puppies all go run up to him. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing? Get away from me." And Linda has a dog, and she brings her little dog in, and all the dogs just swarm, and she just plays with them. And this is really important because to get dogs used to other dogs is a big deal. If you haven't socialized your dog early in that first 14 weeks, and then all of a sudden you introduce another dog, the dog says, "Hey, I don't know you. This is really scary." But if you set the stage early, and we start at 4 or 5 weeks of age, then the dogs get used to all dogs, and they get friendly with all dogs. And the practical application of that is no aggression. We're at a stage now, they're just turning 6 weeks old, and now they know they have to sit before they get a treat. We set the stage to let dogs be dogs and find out about themselves and their own confidence level. And so that when they do go home, they say, "I can handle this. I've been doing this ever since I was 3 weeks old. You know, there's no biggie." All this is set early in their lives so that they get used to it. It's all part of the socialization process. Getting them used to unexpected touches, unexpected sounds, unexpected motion. By the time they're 8 weeks old, they basically know everything. And once they have that in their system, they can roll with anything.
Oh, cool. Okay, Harlan, it's all yours.
All right. Well, it's not quite all mine, but it's going to be. Why don't you just leave that slide right up there?
Okay.
And here we go. Questions, please. Okay. What's a good way to handle reactivity to moving cars? My dog tries to chase them and won't even pay attention to food rewards when he sees one.
There are several methods. It all depends on your environment as to which is going to be most effective. If you use the Feed, See, and Free program, where the car is going by at a distance where the dog can handle it and will actually take the food, that works really well. And you would do the 3-step process. As the car goes by, again, while the dog is under threshold and still taking food, for those of you that are in the training world, you know that the term is inhibition. If a dog won't take food, they're over threshold. They said, "I can't handle this. Mother Nature's pumping all these adrenal hormones into my body, and if I start to digest food, that's going to take some of my awareness for the fight or flight response away from me, so I have to stay sharp." So that means you're too close. So the first thing you would do is find the distance, and it may be 100 feet, maybe 100 yards, where the dog says, "Yeah, that isn't too scary." I would stay away from freeways where the dogs are moving really fast. I would stay away from places where dump trucks or very large garbage trucks are going, because that freaks a dog out. And you would follow the 3 times Pavlov. 4th time, dog looks at scary car going by and then looks at you and gets a treat. So that works very, very well for that. Another way is you might use the BAT routine, starting, that's Grish's program, starting with a car that isn't moving, and go through that program.
Terrific. Angela is pretty inspired by today's training, and she said, "What's the best way to talk to my local shelter about helping them train the dogs there?"
Use dog psychology. So the people who work at shelters are overworked, and everybody feels that their way is the best way to do it. And so positive dog training, non-confrontational dog training, is the way to go. And so what you can do is go in and say, "I would like to show you this and see what you think," rather than say, "I've got this program and you guys are just messing everything up." And so go in with an open heart and open mind. And positive dog training, if I may, is a perfect combination of science and heart. You have to know what the methods are and be able to apply them in a professional way. But you also have to insert the root of it all, which is your kindness, your compassion. If you go into somebody like that at a time of day when they're more receptive, I used to go into schools, for example, to try to get my Paws for Peace program, where we take sheltered dogs and we put them into schools and to get the principals interested. And I talked to my sister, who was a teacher, and said, nobody's paying attention to me. She said, that's because you're going in the morning, or you're going as school's letting out. You have to let some time go by. So find out what time at the shelter that the people so that the people who are running the show are most amenable. That being said, here's another little trick of the trade. If you go to one of the workers who is open to this, and that worker has the director's ear, you can also get a leg up that way. But whatever way you choose, no confrontation.
Fantastic. And how do you teach a dog to back up?
There's two ways to do this. One is if you put the treat on the ground and the dog comes forward. I wonder if I have that in one of my clips. If any of your listeners would like me to send you a clip of how that's done, have them contact me. Just go to my Raise with Praise site, and I'll send you a free clip of exactly how that's done. But one way is to put the treat
You know what
on
we could do, Paul? Just send the clip to Brandy. We'll put it up on our site right with this video, and then everybody can have it, and they don't have to email you.
Perfect. And by the way, YouTube has some excellent trainers. Any behavior you can think of, and I think Backup has like 400 people teaching how they teach backup in positive methods. So I would certainly go on YouTube and find that. But the one way is, as soon as your dog, you happen to capture the dog even leaning backwards, and then maybe putting a paw backwards, and then two paws backwards. So that's called capturing. The other way is you can just move into your dog. In other words, your dog's standing in front of you, and you just walk forward, and your dog takes a half a step back. You reward that, and then a full step, and then 2 steps. And your ultimate result is what you saw here. This is the #1 way to teach snake avoidance training using positive methods. You would teach what's called an environmental cue. The environmental cue is whenever the snake appears and moves, so you have movement. You have the smell of the snake, which you can get online. Whenever you happen to smell it, the dog automatically, that's the cue for the dog to automatically back up. And then you have to also teach separately. You have to teach each one of these separately, that whenever the dog hears a rattle, they automatically, reflexively back up. So all 3 of those have to be taught, and then you have to take it on the road, just like you saw us doing in the hills. So that's the way a positive trainer would teach snake avoidance training.
Okay, fantastic. Now, let's go to another question. What about bringing a fearful adult dog?
You broke up just for a second there, honey. Could you repeat that, please?
I'm reading the question. It says, what about bringing out a fearful adult dog?
I don't know what bringing out means.
Me either, but let's just any hints for handling a fearful adult dog.
#1 is distance. Keep the dog under threshold. #2 is counter conditioning. The easiest way we do that, and by the way, we do the exact same process with fearful children. I do a lot of career days where you walk in, and you saw my golden there, he was 95 pounds, and you walk into a classroom with 4th, 5th, 6th graders with a big 95-pound dog with this big head and these big teeth, and the head's bigger than a lot of the kids' heads. And there's always someone in the classroom that you can see through their body language. They want nothing to do with this. If you do career days or something like this, I might add, that's the very first thing you address. Is say, is anybody have a little bit scared of this big old dog here? And you say, don't worry about it. He doesn't bite, and reassure them. So let me get back to the original point. Just like with children, you can teach a dog to become less fearful using counter conditioning, which means find the distance where the dog will do it and simply say, find it, and throw the treat. And it may be 20 feet. So this is critical. You always have to give the dog the verbal cue. Say, find it, before your hand moves. And this is very difficult for people to learn, which is why it takes 1 to 12 months, is their hand starts to move, and then say find it. If motion happens, Mother Nature says run away from it or go for it. You have to tell the dog what you're going to do. A lot of trainers use the dog's name. I use the word ready so that the dog can anticipate that something's going to happen, and then I say find it and throw the treat. When you saw me doing the emergency come, which is the word here, it was critical that I said the word here a split second before my hand moved. So to answer the question, I kind of got off track there. Find the distance where the dog will take treats, and then slowly but surely over time, this new neural pathway will be formed. And they said, okay, great, this is not a scary person.
Okay, Lauren's got a great question. It's you against some inbred dog training. Lauren writes, we just rescued a mini Aussie a month ago. He doesn't like overly playful puppies and tries to correct them with a nip or a bark. How can I let him know that he doesn't have to be in charge of every dog at the park?
Don't put him in that situation. I am a big fan of the idea of dog parks. But in all the 40 years I've been doing this, probably not more than 2 months goes by where somebody, one of my clients, because my dog was just bitten, my dog was just attacked at a dog park. So although the idea is great, I qualify it by saying, if you know the people, if you know the dog, it is a great idea to let your dog socialize. And make sure those dogs are bomb-proof, make sure that they don't have an aggressive bone in their body, then you can do it. If your dog is the one that's instigating problems, you have to go back to teaching your dog to listen to you. And here's just one of many, many examples. Let's say that your dog escalates and goes to a point where they nip. I mean, look at some of the herding dogs. They're born to nip anyway. What is the substitute behavior that you want for your dog to nip? Well, one is lick. You can teach a dog to use their tongue first on you, and then you can teach a dog to use their tongue on another dog. It's a step-by-step process. That I don't have a video clip of. But if you contact a professional dog trainer, they can show you that. But number one, don't put the dog in the situation where the behavior is going to happen. And number two, teach a substitute behavior. Another substitute behavior is I'll let you chase that dog as long as you chase the dog with a toy in your mouth.
Okay. We're going to close with Margot's question. Margot's dog is Chester. Chester is a neutered male pom, 7 years old, 12 pounds, and perfect, by the way. Smelled a girl doggy in heat about 3 years ago, and since then tries to hump every dog he sees, no matter how large that dog is. Help.
Well, if he's cute, my motto is cute dogs don't need training. So if the other dog, and I'm sure he is, if the other dog is worried about it or it's really getting aggravating, the other dog will just sit, or the other dog will just say, dude, this really doesn't interest me, and eventually the behavior will extinguish. I really don't have a big problem with humping dogs unless it's aggravating the people who are watching it or it's aggravating the dog who's being the humpy, so to speak. So if you have a dog like that, the answer is that as soon as the dog humps, you ask the dog to come to you. And then you say, okay, go hump him again. The dog says, okay. And the dog goes and humps, and you immediately call them to you. What will happen in 1 to 12 months is the dog will go over hump and automatically get off the other dog and say, how did I do? Give me a treat. Within the next 12 months, the dog will look at that, the humpy, and say, nah, I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to look at that dog I want to hump and just look back at my human because I'm getting more money for just staying here.
I gotcha. Listen, one of my moderators, Brandy, by the power of being a moderator here, says tips for training a deaf dog since they can't hear the very important verbal cues.
One of my really good friends is a trainer in Santa Clarita here, and he runs a place called Angel Dogs Training, and his rescue only is deaf dogs. And if you would like a real detailed step-by-step protocol, there are several books out there, and there are others. But the answer is, if the dog cannot hear you, the dog can see you. We teach deaf dogs. I'll just go into stream of consciousness here for a second. So the signal to come is at night is the porch light going on. I do not, by the way, use laser pointers. It's just anecdotal. the dog, and I don't mean to step on anybody's paws here if you really love laser pointers, but I have found that the dogs that we use laser pointers, or people have used laser pointers with, the dog got a little bit obsessive compulsive over the years, and you really just couldn't even call the dog off. So I think it works. I think it has something to do with the frequency of light or something that works with neurologically with the dog. But a regular light, a flashlight, can do it. So for signals, you teach the dog, for instance, come is one light switch, on and off. I want you to lie down is 2, on and off. It's just like they teach herding dogs. The number of whistles means something. So that you would give visual cues. You would also teach the dog to do something, to be unexpectedly touched, because if the dog isn't hearing something, or if the dog isn't seeing something, to be touched unexpectedly, it can be really stressful. Here's a little trick, and I want everybody to listen very clearly on this, because the devil's in the details on this one. While the dog isn't looking at you, whether they are deaf or they are blind, you take a very soft treat, like soft chicken or soft cheese, and when the dog isn't looking, you just toss the treat towards the dog's body. And the dog will spin around and say, "What the heck was that?" And then they'll immediately look on the ground for the treat. So what happens is that unexpected touch becomes associated with treats. So then when you then go up to the dog and touch them with your hand, the dog will look and say, "Where's my treat?" And so that's how you can desensitize the dog, just one of many ways to do it. The critical thing about this is you can never let other people, like when you're walking down the street, see you do it, because they're looking out the window and they're saying, "Oh, that poor dog, they're throwing bricks at it." So, but you can do it at the home. We call it the bonking routine. So although you never hit, kick, shock, shake, jerk, pin, hang a dog, you can bonk them, which is soft treats tossed. Now you don't wind up and whack the dog here. Just toss through the treats so it touches their body, and then they then associate the touch with food.
All right, fantastic. So did you guys learn something today? What do you think? What do you want to say to Paul? Oh man, they're coming in. We've got thanks all the way for people around the world. Norway, where else? We've got people, and it's nighttime there, but thanks. People are getting your book. Thanks. Okay. All right. So now, who wants to win a bag of Merrick grain-free dog food? Who's ready? Okay. So get your typing fingers ready. Okay. This is going to be a real easy one. Okay. So here we go. What is the specific behavior you should be practicing for emergency come? There it is, Diane Spencer. You are our winner.
Woo!
Diane, way to go. Diane, what we'd like you to do is to shoot an email over with your address to info@dogingtonpost.com, and we'll get your information over to Merrick, and they will send you your voucher, and they will also donate a bag in Diane's honor to National Mill Dog Rescue. That's fantastic. Thanks so much. The answer, of course, is here, and that's the one that he said should be practiced like 200 times a day because your baby's life could depend on it. This has been a fantastic session. I loved it. I know everybody else loved it, and it will be. We had hundreds of questions. I apologize that we didn't get to every one of them, but folks, you guys know your babies, and we want to help you. So we'll be back with more, and thank you so much for joining us. All of the webinars in this series will be made available to you on our site on the Merrick Dogington University page. So thanks so much for being here, everybody. Be well, and go rub your dog's belly, or your own, one of the two. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.